He saw it on a bulletin board at the local gym. A printed flyer made from home from an obese man begging any trainer who would listen to come save his life. Those were the three words that stuck out to David Broom, co-creator and executive producer of The Biggest Loser.
Coming up on The Biggest Loser.
Oh, a cupcake, 520 calories.
The paper literally said, "Save my life," in black printed ink. And now a new documentary called Fit for TV, The Reality of The Biggest Loser, is challenging David Broom, claiming they didn't save the lives of the Biggest Loser contestants. He ruined them.
20 years ago, that flyer that David Broom saw in the gym led to one of the most groundbreaking and the most humiliating shows to deal with the obesity epidemic in the U.S. In the early days of The Biggest Loser, overweight contestants were made to carry food in their mouths for challenges. They were shown mountains of donuts and snacks and told to eat high-calorie foods to win free time with the trainer of choice. They were screamed at, laughed at, gawked at. It didn't matter how awful the treatment was or how badly they humiliated their contestants, though, because the alternative, as most of the show creators saw it, and as we, the audience, saw it, was an early death. Flash forward to 2025. Now the Ozempic and Wegovy are the go-to for anyone facing incurable obesity. Fatness is so common, over 30% of adults, that it's now assumed addictive foods play a part in rampant obesity, and it's not strictly a quote-unquote willpower problem like it was in the aughts. Now, do you think if David Broom walked into a Hollywood boardroom and pitched the old show today, a national weekly ritual of starvation and shame, do you think the producers would buy in? Would anyone in America want to see fat people crying on treadmills? Would anyone in their right mind subject themselves to that level of public scrutiny now that there are medications for obesity? And why are the old contestants still fat? Some fatter than when they first went on the show 20 years ago. Why aren't they taking Ozempic? And why are the old contestants accusing The Biggest Loser of destroying their health by making them lose all that weight? Now, these are huge questions, and they really kind of get at the core of like what we face as Americans when we talk about weight loss, because we do pitch it to each other as, you know, it's you lose the weight or you die. And that is the highest stakes possible. We don't care if we humiliate you or shame you or put you in a box. We don't care if we throw donuts at you from a public stockade. As long as you lose the weight, we say, you know, it's worth it because your life is being saved. But this whole Ozempic thing and this documentary you sent me, that really just shoots that argument right in the foot, I think. And I know you're going to have a maybe a different take on it.
I was a huge fan of this show when it first came out. Did you watch this show when it came out?
I didn't. I only really got into the show after you said you knew one of the contestants, and that's when I started watching his season.
Well, I watched it. So at the gym I went to, and the guy's name was Matt Hoover, and he lived in the Seattle area, and he was a Division I wrestler. I think he went to Iowa, which is a big wrestling program, which means he was a really good athlete. He ended up winning the $200,000, and I was just such a big fan of him. And I saw him at the gym, Joe, and I just immediately was going to go talk to him, like almost just drawn to him. And then I stopped because I was embarrassed to see him because he wasn't that thin guy who won the show anymore. He had gained all the weight back.
Yeah.
And I think he saw that in everyone who looked at him. They were like, "Oh, it's you from the show. Oh, but you've gained all the weight back." And it was just a really weird feeling, you know, because I was so proud of what he'd accomplished, but he'd lost all. It's almost like someone who has an addiction issue who goes back to using drugs.
Right. And that it's amazing that you immediately hit on the point that everyone's trying to make, which is it is okay to treat people who gain the weight back as an addict. I mean, like literally in the show, when they're like challenging them by being like, you know, they surround them with donuts and snack foods and things like that for shock and awe value. And they treat them like addicts. That is the test is, you know, are you such a fat ass that you can resist the pile of donuts or the pizzas that are on this table? And what it was doing, it was making the contestants depressed and sick. Like they were, yeah. So I know that we
Well,
covered this episode. This is one of our
and
early episodes, right?
and there is something to be said for this. You feel that childlike where little kids are teasing the heavy kid in class, and it's just so. You're right. Times have changed, and I think why didn't I think that when I was watching? I think even worse than the food challenges, more demeaning to me was to make people exercise like Olympians who were not in shape.
Yeah.
I mean, these people were collapsing and vomiting, and it was dangerous, and it was terrible on their legs and back and neck. I'm surprised that they allowed this to go on, and the video as evidence,
Right.
So they made them sign this. They made them sign their life away that says, "Hey, we can pretty much do to you whatever we want physically, and you don't have any recourse against us." So they knew that they were hurting these people.
Oh, for sure. So, to go back and kind of set the stage slightly, because I glazed over this a little bit. Todd and I did an episode about this a couple of years ago, and it was at the same time that a New York Times article had come out, and it was explaining why Biggest Loser contestants were regaining the weight. And it kind of walked you through the science of it, and it gave you examples from all these contestants from all the different seasons. And what they found was that by following them around years after they had gone on the show, and it's almost a 20-year-old show now, so they had data now. They could follow the old contestants and be like, okay, how many gained the weight back? How many are struggling with it? And they realized that losing the weight and doing what Todd's talking about, which is cutting calories to nothing and exercising like Olympians and quote unquote saving their own lives as much as the show director wanted, as much as America wanted them to, by trying to go through these heroic efforts, they made it to where their metabolism is at a deficit of about 500 to 800 calories a day, meaning that instead of Todd and I, full-grown men, needing 2,500 calories a day to sustain ourselves and be at a neutral weight every day, we don't gain, we don't lose. These poor bastards were at about 1,800 to 2,000, meaning they had to cut out a meal and a half a day in order to maintain, not even to lose, just to maintain. And one of the contestants likened it to being at a like having a severe disability or having an end of life sort of disease. It feels so bad and so weird to not be able to eat and to not be able to have regular meals. And it does affect their energy level. It does affect their health. Like it was damning, and all of them not just gained the weight back, a lot of them got worse. So this whole mentality of let's save them, a couple of years ago that got busted. And what Todd and I are reporting on today is they came out with a documentary that is all about that article. And it highlights it. It uses it as their main focus, their main argument. And so this is sort of like our reflection on how close we were to the mark.
Well, while the show was going on, there was a doctor on the show. The doctor was famous. He was a famous Los Angeles doctor. He had worked for the LA Raiders football team. And the NFL, Joe, just so you know, is notoriously known to have doctors that are, let's get them back in the game. They're not in the best interest of the athlete. And this guy, when he was on the show, he was explaining that you can't exercise it. First of all, let's just take the exercise out of it. It's not safe to be, like what Joe just said, under 2,000 calories for a grown man, period. But if you're exercising like a bodybuilder and like a cross country person at Stanford University, you need a lot more calories, and that's the safe way. But depleting calories and then overexerting yourself is just so bad for your overall health, your mental and your physical health. Your body just can't recover, and you don't lose weight the right way. You're just dropping pounds.
Right. And that's what The Biggest Loser needed these people to do in order to make it a dramatic television show. They needed people to lose weight the wrong way, in a way where every element of science now says it's the wrong way.
So they're doing this no pain, no gain thing, Joe. And then at the end of every show, there's this dramatic weigh-in. And you get this feeling like that they went through all this pain and now they get this reward. They get this attention. Don't I look great? I get to stay. So it's this roller coaster of And I think in our mind we think, yeah, they paid their dues and now they're getting the benefits, right? And
Right.
if you didn't work hard enough, well, you should be eliminated because you're a loser. It's really bad. I'm disgusted. I used to watch the show. You know what I mean? And I was cheering for them. I thought I was one of the good guys.
Well, that's why the show was so seductive. I think that, when you get to the soul of what these people were going through and what the show was about, I do believe the creator and director when he says that he was trying to save lives. Like, I do believe him when he's like, yeah, I saw that on a flyer and an obese person was like, please somebody, help me lose this weight or I will die early. And I've read short stories from like overweight authors, like George R. R. Martin had a short that like was all about a monkey literally on your back that would slap the food out of your hand, and it's like, that's saving your life. Like, what if we had that? So like, it's almost a fantasy that obese people used to have, where if only something would take control from them and make them lose the weight. And this proved that would cripple you, like that would be way worse than environmental control.
Well, that's what we talked about on the first show. And Joe's research was dead on. He's ahead of his time. So I don't know if I am going to thinking they may have stole some of this documentary stuff from Joe's written article. It was that close. And that's why I called him. I go, this is everything you talked about years ago. So, but I don't hold that. I don't think he did it with the best intentions. And I'll tell you why. His interviews during this whole show, when some things were brought to light that they knew were wrong, he's unapologetic about anything that he did. He doesn't say at any point, Joe, I would have done this differently. He said, I still believe in what I did. He never said that. He was proud of his show and proud of the people that he hurt.
Okay. I kind of got that sense, but when he talks about seeing the flyer at the gym, I gave him that benefit. I was like, okay, maybe you really were doing this just to save lives. But the first couple seasons were the most egregious. They talk about that in the documentary, that like they really were making fun of fat people in different like modes. Like they would have the camera shake when somebody fell down off the treadmill, or they would like have the challenges where they have to pick up donuts with their mouth and move them table to table, or else they didn't win the challenge that week. Like that, it started pretty
or
gross.
The crying. They do the video. They go to them crying. So it shows them as weak as, crying about food and crying about missing their family. You know what I mean? Like real personal,
Yeah.
Stuff that, I think too, taking off their clothes for measuring when they're, obese people is kind of cruel too,
Yeah.
And exposing their biggest insecurity to millions of people, and millions of people watch this show.
Yeah, the close off weigh-ins, that doesn't feel totally necessary. And
right,
a lot of the stuff in the documentary, our article, by the way, was very dry. Like when we covered that episode a couple of years ago, we focused almost entirely on like, here's the science of what's happening, and here's the breakdown, and here's what it used to look like. And you had the benefit of, you had watched it and you had met Hoover. But later, when the documentary, this new documentary, you get to see how exploitative it was, and they're like, no, let's make fat people run until they literally fall over and can't move again. Like I was at it for like, what if we all knew this about metabolism? What if we spread this information?
Mm-hmm.
What if people approached weight loss in a environmental control way, not a
that's what I thought
personal
the power was.
Moral way. Yeah.
I thought it's unrealistic to live that kind of life where you're away from your family and you're away from pizza places, and and if you could make that, and it seems doable, but of course it's not.
Yeah. So the biggest question today, and the one that I wanted to ask you, I mean, like the question originally was, is this moral? And I think in that episode, and also after this documentary, we both agree, no, it's not moral to make fat people perform for us while, they exercise in ways that cripples their metabolism later and makes it worse, makes the problem, unbeatable for down the road. So the real question today, and the thing that they ask in the documentary, and they don't answer it. Like if you watch very closely, they don't actually come to a complete answer on this. They say does semaglutide, meaning Wegovy and Ozempic and all these weight loss drugs, does this invalidate Biggest Loser? Does this make it to where it's not a good show? Does it make it to where it couldn't be made today? Because at the core of it, if I approach you, Todd, and you were a 400-pound man, and I said, I want you to go on TV and lose this weight, but I want you to run on a treadmill and pick up donuts in your mouth and cry and weigh in with your shirt off every week. It's that, or you go to the doctor and you get a prescription for Ozempic or semaglutide. Which of those two would you choose?
The latter.
Right. Dumb question. I know. It's an obvious one. And the only way I can see not having that happen, not choosing the semaglutide or Wegovy, and the only way I can think of that would be more morally outrageous is, what if people can't afford the Ozempic or Wegovy that's going to save their life, and that's why they go on The Biggest Loser? So not only are you eliminating it to where, like, okay, the only people who will go on The Biggest Loser now are people who are both poor and extraordinarily overweight. You can't exploit harder than that. Like, that is the most exploitative you could get. The show could only get worse, really.
I think you're taking a lot of the production of the show too. Was who became big celebrities were the trainers.
Yeah,
and this became an international brand. The Biggest Loser had supplements and diet drinks and everything, but a lot of it was that Marine drill sergeant yelling and screaming at you, beating you down, and then building you back up. And that was ugly too. To me, that was as ugly as the donuts and stuff. To have these people who were professional athletes and on steroids themselves, talking down to other people, and then think, well, they're doing it because I'm doing this because I love you, and saying things like that. So,
and that love translated to a ton of branding and great publicity for these trainers, and like selling their services. All the trainers that appeared on Biggest Losers got massively wealthy,
doing speeches,
Yeah. So, I do want to like sort of walk through one of the questions they ask on this show, and it is about semaglutide and Ozempic and Wegovy. We have done an episode about weight loss recently that talked about these drugs.
Hey, I've done these drugs.
Yeah, so. and I've got members of my family who are on them or have done them, specifically for like their health, because they needed it medically. And on that episode that we recorded, we talked about how, yes, you will gain the weight back if you stop doing it most of the time. There's circumstances where you don't. You have to step down. You have to consult your doctor. They will put you on a different plan. They'll transition your drugs. But generally speaking, if you don't make lifestyle changes after the drugs, or really honestly before, then when you step off Wegovy or Ozempic, you will probably gain it back. Hold on, let me find the actual numbers here. We're gonna walk through this one at a time. So, like I said, the original study of The Biggest Loser found that contestants, they burned 500 to 800 calories less per day for their body size. And like we said, that's like, skipping a meal and a half. Like, you just don't eat throughout the day like you normally would if you were a normal, healthy adult. And it does affect their hormones in a negative way. It's not like, oh, poor baby doesn't have to buy as much food. It's like, no, it feels bad. Like their body feels bad because they're not eating regularly. But yet when they eat, they pack on the calories.
You feel like you're in a Siberian prison and being fed just enough not to die. You're to say you're tired would be an understatement.
Right. So they lost all of that weight on Biggest Loser. It royally messed up their caloric intake forever. If they went on semaglutide instead, the average participant loses 15% of their body weight after a year on, semaglutide.
Which is slower.
Slower,
which is better,
yes.
Which is better, right?
Exactly, yeah. It's less dramatic. It won't give you that caloric offset. So, like, you probably will have a normal metabolism after you go off Wegovy. There's still data that needs to be collected. This is still early. People are still on it. Like, it's a new drug. So, like, we have to wait decades before we really, really know what it does. But generally speaking, what semaglutide does is it mimics a hormone we already make, which is GLP-1, and it tells the brain, "Hey, we've eaten enough. We're good. You can slow down the stomach, and food gets less interesting. It kills your restlessness, and it makes you less likely to like chomp." Um, and that kind of is what The Biggest Loser needed. Like, it needed them to have that desire. So, like, if anybody was on Ozempic during The Biggest Loser, if that was part of their workout or their training system, there would be no challenges where they show them a mountain of food and say, "Don't you want it, buddy? Come on, you're drooling for it." It's like, no, they GLP-1, like semaglutide, would just make them not care anymore.
It could be the most delicious thing, your favorite food, Joe, and you might pick at it.
Yeah.
I wish you. It's hard to explain because most people who have any kind of real attachment to food and love food think, "Oh, that wouldn't work for me because I'm an emotional eater and I love to eat." And it works.
It works. Yeah.
You're just not hungry.
The real kicker, though, is I've been asked this question since we have done that episode, just by people I know who are like, I'm not a doctor, but I did read some good articles about this, and they will come ask me. And it's, but if you get off Ozempic, don't you gain the weight back? Is it as bad as gaining the weight back after being on The Biggest Loser, though? So the numbers are, if you stop taking Ozempic, about 2/3 of the weight comes back within a year. For most people, most people have a rebound where the weight comes back. So while you're on Ozempic, the best way to think about it is you are not cured of obesity. You're being maintained. Like Wegovy and Ozempic is a maintenance system that supplements your hormones and makes you less hungry. But when you get off Ozempic, the signals come back for you to eat, and it'll be the same exact process as when you were, before you took it in the first place.
Did you do any research on the hormonal stuff? Did that mess people mentally at all?
Yes. There were 4 main hunger hormones or appetite hormones that was messing with them. 2 big ones and 2 small ones. In the original episode, we talked about this. And effectively what happens is, like, as soon as they're not on The Biggest Loser, those hormones are back to firing at full, and louder. Like I think the simplest way I can put it is, with Wegovy and Ozempic, if you stop taking them, your hunger hormones come back, but they're not louder. They're basically the same. It's you slip back into being the you before the Ozempic. Whereas Biggest Loser, when they came back and they started gaining the weight back, those hormones were screaming at them to eat. And not only that, they needed less food forever. So, like, not only are the signals louder to make them eat,
they reset their whole metabolism.
Yeah. And the answer we arrived at when we first did an episode, centered around the New York Times article, is that we'll explain why one of the contestants was able to keep the weight off, and why some people getting off of Ozempic or Wegovy, when they stop taking it, why they can keep the weight off. There is a legitimate science-backed, time-backed answer for how to keep the weight off, how to do all these things right. Whether you're going on The Biggest Loser or whether you're going on Wegovy and then deciding to stop later. Doctors help. Well, we're going to start with that. We're not going to tease that. Go, talk to your doctor. They will help you step off these drugs in a way where, like, it doesn't become a catastrophe for you. But we've also got a couple of other answers that we're going to go through for, how do we keep the weight off if we've already put in the work physically? How do we keep the weight off if we put in the work by, these drugs that are sort of like still new? Whatever you've done to lose the weight, there are ways to keep it off, but you have to be prepared for it. We have some new data that has killed the fantasy that discipline maintains weight loss. I don't know if you ever had this, Todd. When I was young, I was overweight by a lot when I was in, like, middle school and high school. And I read a book in that era, and the name will tell you how dated this book is. It was called One Fat Summer. and it was a book that they gave to fat kids in
Oh,
like middle and
jeez.
high school. And it told the story of a teenage boy who was way overweight and he mowed lawns, and that's how he lost the weight. I swear to God, that is the plot of this book. Is he gets bullied almost in a Stephen King like way, and then like he like gets a job mowing lawns and it sucks, and it's a big lawn and it's like a kooky neighbor, and like he just works his way into being less weight.
This is like the bully kicking sand in your face, taking your girlfriend at the beach. So you go home and you do push-ups and sit-ups. I mean, this is bad. They give you this book, and they didn't give it to everybody. They just gave it to certain kids, the husky kids, as we like to say.
You could rent it from the library no matter who you were, but they sure as heck pushed it toward the fat kids. And if you think I'm lying, look up that book. It's amazing. I might read it. We'll just have a show where I just read that book out loud. Like this is like it's a full reading. And similarly, Michelle Obama, when the Obamas were in office, she started a campaign that was, about eating better and like reining in McDonald's and these big food industries, big food, and like making their food less addictive. And very quickly, they came to the Obamas with a bucket load of money and lobbyists, and they're like, "Hey, how about knock it off? Shut up, shut up."
Burger King, and McDonald's, and Taco Bell came and said, "That's about enough of that nonsense."
Yeah, the actual king from Burger King and the clown showed up, and they had pipes and wrenches, and they said, "Stop it." And what happened was suddenly Michelle Obama's message went to, her message switched over to get active. And she wanted to tell kids, just exercise a lot, just do the one fat summer thing, like go out and play basketball. That'll make you lean. And
she wasn't exactly Nancy Reagan thin either, right?
Yeah. And some food scientists got a hold of that, and they're like, okay, the over amount of calories that these kids are eating requires about 7 hours of exercise a day. Like they were looking at the calorie plus of most overweight kids, and they're like, no, they'd have to be exercising literally the whole day, including while they're in class reading. So unlikely. So the data that finally killed the fantasy that discipline will maintain weight loss is what we're looking at. And we found out through that original article, there was one contestant on The Biggest Loser who was able to keep the weight off. And the way she did it, 1 out of like 20, and the way she did it was she just had very good control over her environment. She was taking care of her parents while they were sick. She was able to buy and stock food in her cabinets that like were very, very strict and structured. And she said she didn't eat out like the other contestants would. They talked about their hormone levels like they were going into blackout fugue states. Like they'd walk into a 7-Eleven, walk out thinking they had just gone for gas, and then there's like they look down and there's food in their hand, like they didn't remember buying it, and they would eat it fast, like their body wouldn't let them eat it slow. So when your hormones are at that screaming level, it is literally addiction levels, like it's opiate levels.
I think that's an important thing to point out, that it is an addiction, like, because it doesn't get the same respect of alcoholism or drug addiction, or and it is, because I remember when I was a kid, it wasn't common, but there was a surgery people used to because they were having such problems with their weight, they would sew their jaws shut so they couldn't eat. Have you ever heard of this? And then the same with the lap band surgeries, and so people are literally trying to save their life no matter what it takes, no matter how barbaric it is. If they have to put a thing on their stomach or saw their jaws shut, it sounds like torture.
I've also heard of the calorie drips, where they like put a straw or like a almost like an air hose through your nose down into your stomach, and it drips a liquid calorie solution into your stomach all day instead of having you eat. So you just don't have any control over it whatsoever.
Oh my goodness!
There's some crazy extreme things I've heard people do. But honestly, the biggest mistake people make, and the way to do this properly, and with the key word is self-awareness. We are going to eventually use that word so much that it'll wear out. But it's to approach it with self-awareness, to know that if you starve yourself, if you do 7 hours of exercise a day, if you take Wegovy, but you don't have a plan in place for after you stop taking it, you will get the weight back. It will come back. So the better thing to do is before you start any of these, do anything you want to increase your discipline, to exercise, to do these, to go on Wegovy. I'm not saying don't take the drug. Do it. It will save your life, especially under certain circumstances. It will make you healthier. But you have to have a plan in place for afterward. And that plan should look like slow loss, like slow weight loss, resistance training, steady protein, really good sleep, like becoming a quote unquote professional sleeper. Look at yourself as I sleep professionally. That's what I do. And not letting your body feel like it's starving pretty much ever. If you ever get hungry, you've lost. Like anytime you feel the inkling of those hormones telling you you're hungry or starving, you've already lost the battle that day. You've messed up. The way to do that is to surround yourself, like that one contestant who kept the weight off. Surround yourself by good, guiltless foods. Like, have just a overstock amount of like roasted Brussels sprouts ready for you to eat, and like have yourself popcorn at night, that is unadulterated by butter and greases and things like that. Whatever works for you to have a lot of, just have it available at all times so you're never hungry. That sounds like crazy advice, right? Like that sounds like it's impossible.
No, it's just it's the old thing of it. The really good doctor, the terrible doctor will tell you things you can't eat, and a really good doctor will tell you these are things you can eat.
Yeah.
And if you do, you're not going to get fat eating pistachios, I promise.
Yeah.
But if you find something that I think too, and we both had a lot of ups and downs in our weight, but we've both had a lot of success too losing weight. I think it seems like when someone goes on the Wegovy or Ozempic, they kind of get that snobbish, I don't have to work out.
Yeah.
And then the people who are the overworker outers, over dieters, but there is a balance, right? And then some of us are more, you do have to have that plate of exercise, rest, the right kind of diet. It takes all three, or it's not going to be sustainable.
Oh, completely. And the old phrase that they used to use that probably will get a shot now because it's so tired and boring, lifestyle changes. What that actually looks like is embracing the fact that you're going to be a chef. Like the way to think about it is you're going to be a professional sleeper. You are going to explore what's delicious and what you love that is good for you. Like you'll have to make a list of here's all the things I can eat without any guilt whatsoever that won't bring on the weight. But you're going to have to find ways to make that tasty for you, which sometimes that means like, okay, I know that if I sprinkle this vegetable with olive oil and this particular seasoning, I freaking love it. Or there's this type of grain where if I eat it in the morning, it keeps me full for a long time. I really like it with these certain things on it. You have to go investigate. One of the best things I found for me was plain yogurt. You can mix that with, I love ranch and I love creamy dressings, but they're the worst for you. So you can take plain yogurt, plain no flavor Greek yogurt. You can mix that with a ranch packet, and it tastes like creamy ranch through and through. Like there's almost no difference. It's like a dip. It's amazing.
That's a good hack, right?
Yeah, you gotta find a life worth of those hacks. Like you can't just have one or two. You have to like keep going on that journey nonstop. You have to basically teach yourself to be a cook, because the world is set up to cook in the opposite direction. The world is set up to, like Michelle Obama, the world is set up for the king and the clown to show up at your door with pipes and make you eat that burger.
What was your Achilles heel? You used to tell me something about how much you didn't like the gym. You had some way of saying it that sounded like you'd rather go to the state pen than to go. You were not a fan of walking on treadmill. Maybe it was a treadmill. There was something that you just said, no, thank you. But you do cardio walking outside, or you found something to replace it, right?
I think what I told you is the most boring thing you can do in the world is go to the gym and get on a treadmill. And if you
it's how he said it, like
yeah, if you put in headphones, then it's just you and the voice in your head that doesn't like doing what you're doing, and that's it. But I found that if I listen to lectures or podcasts in my ears while I play Pokemon Go, while I walk, I literally have to fill every sense that I have with entertainment while I do it to keep doing it. and that's distracting enough for me to do it. So like I did exercise today. I exercise every day, and it's mostly like hiking and walking. It's a great
And it's
cardio.
working.
It is
And it's
working.
working.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I also do that recognizing that Michelle Obama's advice to young fat kids to just go exercise 7 to 8 hours a day, that is unrealistic. That is biggest loser talk, and it's not going to work. You're not exercising to lose weight. The best way to look at exercise is it's not there to torch calories. Exercise alone, even if you're very good at it and you do it very constantly, it only accounts for 5% of your weight loss. And that's not me giving it like a fake ratio. It's about that. It's like 5 to 10% is direct burn from exercise. What exercise is actually doing for you, it's defending your metabolism. Strength training in particular raises your leptin sensitivity and lowers your ghrelin, so you're not walking around, hungry and haunted by an empty stomach all day. Exercise, cardio makes you more cardiovascularly fit and raises your resting burn rate slightly. So like you're not.
That's the quality.
Yeah.
That's a quality of life thing. It isn't just pounds or vanity, right?
Exactly.
You actually feel better. You do better. You have more energy. You sleep better. You're better at work. You're better in your relationships. You're more self-confident.
Absolutely. So that is the real goal of the exercise is the way I used to do it, which is the wrong way. I would go in, get on the treadmill at 24 Hour Fitness. I would stare down at the digital readout that said how many calories I had burned running. And I was always shocked that it was only a couple hundred. Like I would literally, no, I would run on the treadmill and I'd look down and I'd be like, can I eat a burger yet? Like I'm waiting for it to say like 400,
You're like,
500.
This thing's broken. There's no way.
And it's like after like, I've moved for like, 5 to 10 miles and it's like, that's a pack of gummy bears. That's nothing. So, you will always be disappointed learning how many calories an exercise actually burns. What you're actually doing is you're safeguarding your metabolism, you're training your cardiovascular system, your whole body is going to benefit from it, but it's not going to burn, calories. It's not going to do what you think it's doing. The sad but also helpful part of this and the best takeaway for me is lifestyle change is the self-aware thing to do. Add predictable meals, consistent sleep, realistic goals, and get into a feedback loop with your body's thermostat and your system instead of fighting against it, basically. And that is the self-aware way to lose weight and make it consistent and not rebound like both The Biggest Loser and Wegovy oftentimes does.
You've been listening to The Re-Engineered You. Thank you so much for listening to the show. You mean the world to us.
You can find us at www.re-engineeredyou.com. That's where I have research links, show notes, and feedback.
We're not experts in anything. We've got an opinion on everything.